Hello and welcome back to our sustainable journey. I am Steve. Last week we set up the worm bin, which I've just been digging in to see how it's doing. It feels good. It's a little dry, but we'll add a little bit of water today, but we probably don't need to. And I'm gonna take, so here's, I put all my worm bins in here. So I'm going to take some worms from this bin. I think it's got a good amount in there. And we're going to add them to this one. So let's talk types of worms. So we use red wigglers, which the Latin name is Eisenia fetida, Eisenia fetida. And they live in the top 6 inches of soil normally, or the top 6 inches, like usually like leaf litter, like the top layer of your soil, versus the night crawlers. ENCs, European night crawlers, those live the next 6 inches down usually. And so because our bins are so shallow, right, this is only like 8 to 10 inches. That's why we like the red wigglers. Now in the big bins over here, we still use red wigglers because we only add a few inches of compost at a time to these bins. And so the red wigglers always stay at the top layer. So then you can see, so the worms are going to be in the top few inches up in here, but they're not going to be all the way down at the bottom. And so we add, once we see more worms on the top layers, we're going to add more compost to the top to feed them so that they keep moving up. So that's how we encourage them to move up. Now, do they all live in that top 6 inches? No, of course not. We find them deeper than that all the time. These are averages. You're never gonna have your worms do what you want them to do, ever. They're like children. So if you have like some of those worm towers, and I always see these questions like, how do I get my worms to move up or move down or whatever? You encourage them, but worms gotta do what worms are gonna do. Like, you know, how do I stop them from hanging out on the top lid? Like, you're not going to. They're gonna find a way to crawl around. See, there's one on the top lid. There's another one on the top lid. I don't know. And I've been doing this for years and years and years, and there's no good answer. Basically, worms are going to be worms. So let's dig through here. We'll find, there's plenty of worms. I was just looking at them. Yeah, there we go. So we got a whole grouping of worms. So I'm probably just going to take stacks and move them over, because there are plenty of worms. See? So normally what you'd do, if you went out and bought worms from one of the worm suppliers, Uncle Jim or Memes or any of the other guys out there, you're gonna get a bag of worms, and you're gonna want to put them into your bin and let them get acclimated before you feed them. So you don't want to feed them right away. So you're probably gonna feed them like the next day. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna leave your lid off your worm bin and put a light over it, or put it in a room with a light, right? So like in here, we've got all our hay, and we've got a light up there. So I could put them in here with the light on. What that does is they don't like the light. That encourages them to burrow into the soil that you've created. So you can see, like just in the few minutes we've been here, most of the worms have burrowed down because they don't like the light. And so you leave that light on for 24 hours, at least, to encourage them to burrow down. Now, some suppliers sell a mix. So they do what's called a compost mix. I know Uncle Jim's does this, and the reason it's a mix is because it's really easy for worms to get cross-contamination. So you have a bin of red wigglers and a bin of Indian blues, and they cross over, and then as soon as they do, you've got to mix. You can't stop them from combining like that. And so they sell it as a mix. I think Memes has guaranteed red wigglers, but how long, I don't know how long that'll stay guaranteed. If she ever adds Indian blues to her supply, she's gonna have a mix. And there's nothing wrong with that. The blues, however, like to explore. They're more difficult to maintain, I guess. They will die off, they'll escape your bin and dry out and die, because they need their conditions to be perfect. So if you're a new worm farmer, don't be discouraged if you get a mix. Try and do the best you can, try and encourage them to go down into the soil. But if you do get blues in with your red wigglers, it's gonna happen. So don't panic, it happens to everybody. But you want to encourage them to go down, put a light over it. That'll start the process, right? So you can see they've all basically burrowed in at this point, down into the mix that we put in here. So I'm gonna, obviously that's not enough worms, so I'm gonna keep adding from here. Add a few more. Now, there's a couple different things to consider when worm farming, okay? What are you doing it for? So we have a compost company, and we collect food scraps from businesses, restaurants, individuals, and we compost them, and we use our worms to do the composting. So we need a lot of worms, a lot of bins, to break down all that waste, because we're collecting probably 2 to 3 tons a week. But if you're just doing your own home stuff, you probably don't need, 40 bins set up, plus the giant bins that we have and the compost piles and things like that. You don't need any of that. You just one bin is probably enough for most families. And so that's one thing to consider, and it depends on the size of your family too. So like a small family would only need one bin. You don't need, I'm gonna mix this up, so let's kind of encourage them to go deeper. And so you'd really only need one bin. And then about 3 to 6 months, you can harvest the bin, harvest the castings that they've made into your garden. So you can do one in the spring, one harvest in the spring and one harvest in the fall, to make your garden better, or just put them out on the ground. Like, it doesn't hurt anybody. And so that's one thing that you can do with a small single bin. If you're planning on doing large scale, then you'd want to set these up to be more of like breeder bins, because you're going to need something larger than this for long term. So that's what we do. These are more breeder bins, so we grow the population, and then we can add a set of these to one of the big bins. We usually add it's about 4 bins that we take. So we'll take 4 of these tubs to make one of those big tubs to get those started when we add new big tubs. So that's why I have these breeding right now. We don't do any breeding in the winter. We do it all in the spring and the summer. And then in the fall, we kind of shut it down, the breeding program, put them all into the tubs, and put the tubs into the barn where it's heated for the winter time, because we are in Illinois and it can get a little cold here. So that's another thing to consider, is where you're keeping your worms when you are worm farming. So if you're in the south, anywhere, in your house, outside of your house, either one is fine. If you're in the north, you're gonna wanna bring them inside in the wintertime, or put them somewhere warm, or insulate the bins. Like you can wrap these bins, these tubs with like this foam board. See that foam board that we have? We've wrapped our bins in that in the past. And so something like that will keep them warm, adding, you know, like a blanket around them. Or we've used, if you've ever seen seed mats, or those heated pet mats, we use those to warm up if we're doing breeding in the wintertime. It's rare, but we have done it to make sure that our worms stay warm in the winter. And one of those seed mats, pet mats, are perfect for a worm bin. They're about the size of one of these tubs, so that's what I've used in the past. That should get you going. So you see all the worms are gone. They have acclimated. Oh, that's avocado pits. And so they've all dug their way in. So I don't need to do much. I'm going to toss a lid on this. We'll call it a day. So in the meantime, while you guys are setting up your bins, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if something's not going right, let me know. Post a question, post a comment. There's a lot of people that do this, and so there's a lot of help that can be out there answering these questions and things like that. So we'll keep an eye on this bin, see how it does. I'll keep it separate from all the others that we have, and post those questions and comments. All right, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Take care. What's up, girl? You say hi? Dude, you got some flies on your head. You got, let me get that. Hi, Onyx. Oh, everybody's coming over. So we've got Ruby, Bree, Onyx, Gypsy, Olaf. Look at this dude. He's huge. And he is, what, January 14th. So 5.5 months. And he's almost as big as they are. Big boy. And then Tiana, way over there, just hanging out.